People always tell you that your wedding night is supposed to be the happiest night of your life. But no one ever says what you should do when your new husband disappears, or when a woman whispers from the dark, warning you about the man you just married. My name is Claire, and before I share what happened, I want you to promise me one thing. Don't assume you truly know someone, no matter how much you love them. Because I thought I knew my husband. I thought I understood his silence, his charm, his strange habits. But I didn't, not even close. On my wedding night, at exactly 12:03 a.m., in a beautiful old house we rented for the weekend, I heard a woman whisper from inside the darkness, "Don't trust him." At first, I froze. I wasn't even sure I heard it correctly. The voice was soft, shaky, almost broken. It sounded like a woman trying to warn me, but too afraid to speak louder. My heart jumped into my throat. I stood completely still in the center of the bedroom, unable to breathe, unable to move, unable to understand why a stranger's voice was inside the house, inside my room, on the night I became someone's wife. I slowly turned toward the corner where the sound came from. The room was dim, lit only by a small lamp on the bedside table. Shadows covered most of the walls. The closet door was slightly open, just enough to make the darkness inside look alive. That was where the whisper came from. I know it. I felt it. I called out softly, "Hello? Is someone there?" No answer. Just silence. Heavy, cold, uncomfortable silence that made my skin crawl. I took a shaky step back, suddenly aware of how alone I was. My husband, Mark, had stepped out nearly an hour earlier, saying he needed to take a quick call. I didn't question it at the time. I trusted him. But now, things didn't feel right. Not even a little. My chest tightened as I stared at that half-open closet door. A part of me wanted to run out of the room and never look back. Another part wanted to open it, just to prove to myself that I wasn't losing my mind on my wedding night. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob. Before I could touch it, the floorboard behind me creaked. I spun around, my pulse racing, but the room was empty. The air felt colder. My eyes kept darting around, searching for something, anything, that made sense. But all I could hear was my own breathing. Fast. Uneven. Scared. Just when I thought I couldn't take another second of the silence, the bedroom door suddenly clicked. Someone turned the handle from the outside. I froze again, more frightened than before. The door opened slowly, too slowly, and Mark walked in. Mark walked into the room slow and calm, as if nothing unusual had happened. But something in his eyes changed the moment he saw my face. It wasn't concern. It wasn't confusion. It was hesitation, like he was quickly trying to decide what expression he should pretend to wear. His gaze shifted to the half-open closet door, then back to me. "Claire," he asked softly, "why do you look so pale?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. My throat felt tight. I pointed toward the closet, my hand shaking visibly, but Mark didn't move toward it immediately. Instead, he took one slow step toward me, like he wanted to distract me from it. "Did you hear something?" he finally asked. Hear something? That was the understatement of the century. I swallowed hard and nodded. "A woman," I whispered. She said, "Don't trust you." The room fell into a silence so tense it felt like it was holding its breath. Mark's expression didn't show shock. It didn't even show fear. It showed annoyance. Like someone had told him a joke he didn't find funny. "Claire," he said, exhaling sharply, "you're exhausted. It's been a long day. Wedding stress, travel, hours of talking to people. Your mind is just playing tricks on you." He reached out his hand and touched my arm, but I pulled away instinctively. His touch felt unfamiliar now. Heavy. Cold. Mark's eyes darkened when I stepped back from him, but he didn't say anything about it. Instead, he finally walked to the closet and pulled the door open all the way. The wooden hanger holding my dress swayed slightly, like someone had brushed past it a moment ago. But the closet was empty. Completely empty. Mark turned around slowly. See? Nothing. His voice was calm, but too calm, like he had practiced it. I stared at the inside of the closet, trying to convince myself that I had imagined everything. But I hadn't. I knew what I heard. The voice was real. The warning was real. Something about Mark was wrong. He shut the closet door and walked toward me again. Listen, he said softly, almost too softly. I shouldn't have left you alone for so long. The call took longer than I expected. His explanation sounded neat. Too neat. Like he'd rehearsed it on the way back. Who were you talking to? I asked quietly. Mark blinked a few times, then looked away for a second, just long enough for me to notice he was searching for a believable answer. Work, he said. It was work stuff. A lie. I felt it instantly. No one from his office should be calling him at midnight on his wedding night. And not for an hour. I stepped back from him slowly. Mark, I need you to tell me the truth. He looked at me again, this time with a harder expression. The truth is that you're tired, he said, and you're letting your imagination scare you. He tried to walk closer again, but I moved aside. Mark, I heard her, I insisted. She whispered it like she was right behind me. Mark let out a long exhale, this time impatient. You're stressed. It happens. People hear things. His tone changed. A hint of irritation slipped through. A crack in the mask he always wore. Before I could say anything else, the light in the room flickered again once, twice, then steadied. I flinched. Mark didn't react at all. That scared me more than the flicker did. He didn't even look at the lamp. It was as if he expected it. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to understand what was happening. Trying to understand the man standing in front of me who suddenly felt like a stranger. Can we just leave? I asked softly. We can go to a hotel. Anywhere else. Mark stared at me, and for a moment his expression went blank, completely blank. We're not leaving, he said firmly. We're staying here. Together. There was something final in the way he said those words. Something that sent a sharp shiver through me. I nodded slowly, even though my whole body screamed at me to run. Mark walked toward the bathroom, saying he needed to wash up. The moment the door shut behind him, I let out the breath I had been holding. My legs felt weak. My chest felt tight. I needed a moment to think. A moment to breathe. A moment to decide what to do. I walked to the closet again, my hands trembling. I didn't know what I expected to find. But I needed to look. I needed to know if I really imagined everything or if there was something inside that closet that I wasn't meant to see. I opened the door slowly, pushing the hangers aside to look deeper inside. That's when I noticed something I hadn't seen before. The back panel of the closet was slightly pushed out. Not enough to be obvious. Just enough to show it had been moved recently. I swallowed hard and reached out to touch it. The panel was loose, looser than it should be. I pressed my fingers along the edge, and the wood shifted under my hand. There was a small gap, almost invisible unless someone was looking closely. My heart pounded. Was there something behind it? A hidden space? A secret compartment? A place where someone could hide, or where something was kept hidden. I leaned closer. And that's when I heard it again. A sound. Not a whisper. Not a voice. This time, it was breathing. Slow. Unsteady. Right behind the wooden panel. I jerked back, a soft gasp escaping my mouth. The panel vibrated slightly, just enough to show someone, or something was definitely behind it. I covered my mouth with my hand, forcing myself not to scream. My mind raced. Who was behind the panel? Was it the woman who whispered to me? Was she trapped? Hiding? Watching? The breathing grew louder for a moment, then stopped abruptly, like the person on the other side suddenly realized I was listening. My heart hammered violently. Then, silence. Total silence. Suddenly the bathroom door opened. I jumped back from the closet so fast I nearly tripped. Mark walked out, wiping his hands. His eyes instantly scanned the room, like he was checking if I touched something I shouldn't have. I stood frozen near the window, trying to look normal, trying to look calm, even though my pulse was pounding in my ears. "Everything okay?" he asked, too casually. Too carefully. Yes, I lied. He walked closer, studying me. His expression softened, but not in a comforting way. More like he was trying to keep me from asking more questions. "Come to bed," he said. "We've had enough craziness for one night." I nodded slowly. But inside, I knew something with absolute certainty. The woman's voice wasn't in my imagination. Someone was in that closet. Someone who knew something about Mark. Someone who whispered a warning, because she wanted to save me. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside Mark, staring at the ceiling, my body stiff, my mind racing, every sound in the old house making my heart jump. Mark fell asleep almost instantly, breathing slowly and evenly, like nothing in the world was wrong. But I knew better. The whisper in the dark. The loose wooden panel. The breathing behind it. None of it was my imagination. There was someone in that house. Someone watching me. Warning me. And whoever she was afraid of Mark. I kept glancing at him, trying to understand who this man beside me really was. The same man who held my hands during the vows. The man who kissed me in front of everyone. The man I thought I loved. But now, even in sleep, his face looked different, cold, unreadable, like he was wearing someone else's mask. Around 3 a.m., he shifted slightly, turning his back to me. I slowly slid out of bed, careful not to wake him. My feet touched the wooden floor silently as I moved toward the closet again. I didn't want to go near it. Every part of me screamed to stay away. But I couldn't ignore it. I needed to know what was behind that panel. I needed answers, even if the truth scared me. When I reached the closet, I hesitated for a moment, listening. The house was silent. Not peaceful silent, empty silent. I opened the door as quietly as I could and crouched down near the back wall. My fingers shook as I pressed the edge of the loose panel again. The wood shifted slightly, but I didn't push further. I was terrified that if I opened it, something or someone would look back at me. I leaned my ear closer, barely breathing. Nothing. No sound. No breathing. Only my heartbeat echoing in my ears. I closed the closet door and stepped away, trying not to panic. If someone had been inside that hidden space earlier, they were gone now. Or maybe they were just waiting for Mark to fall asleep too. The thought made the room feel even colder. I walked toward the window, pulling the curtains slightly open. Outside, the yard was dark, lit only by a single street lamp far down the road. The wind pushed the branches of the trees gently, and the house creaked the way old houses do. But somewhere in the silence I felt watched. Not by something outside, but from somewhere inside these walls. I suddenly felt that I wasn't alone even now. That someone was awake, listening, watching. I closed the curtains again and turned back toward the bed. Mark hadn't moved. His back was still turned to me, his breathing still steady. Strange how the person sleeping beside you can feel like the most dangerous thing in the room. I climbed back into bed slowly, trying not to make the mattress shift, trying to blend into the shadows. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. I couldn't tell. But at some point, I must have drifted off because I woke up to sunlight leaking through the curtains. I opened my eyes slowly, disoriented. The room felt different in the morning light, warmer, almost normal. The shadows were gone. The fear felt distant, like a dream I wasn't sure I believed anymore. For a moment, I wondered if maybe the whisper had been stress. Maybe the breathing had been the wind. Maybe the loose panel was just old wood shifting. But that small hope disappeared the moment I turned and saw Mark sitting upright on his side of the bed, already awake, already dressed, staring at me. Not lovingly, not softly, just staring. "Morning," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. I forced a small smile. "Morning. You're up early." "I didn't sleep much," he replied. His eyes didn't blink. He didn't look tired. He looked calculating, like he had been watching me long before I woke up. I pulled the blankets up slightly without thinking, suddenly feeling exposed. "We should get breakfast," he said suddenly. "There's a small cafe near the road. Let's go." His tone wasn't really a suggestion. It was more like an instruction. I nodded and got out of bed slowly. As I walked to my bag, my eyes drifted toward the closet. The door was open, wide open. I froze. I had closed it last night. I was sure. Mark followed my gaze, and then looked away instantly, as if he didn't want me focusing on it. "Hurry," he said. "Let's go." I got ready quickly, my mind racing. When we stepped outside, the cold morning air hit my face like a splash of water. It felt refreshing, like freedom. But Mark stayed close beside me the whole time, never letting me get more than a step away. The cafe was small and cozy, run by an elderly couple. They greeted us warmly, but the woman behind the counter stared at Mark a little too long. Her smile faded slightly when she looked at him. When her eyes shifted to me, there was something else: concern. Quiet, unspoken concern. I didn't know why, but it made me uneasy. While we ate, Mark kept his phone face down on the table. Every time it vibrated, he placed his hand over it quickly, not letting me see anything. Once it buzzed long enough for me to hear a faint ringtone through the vibration, something soft, something feminine. Mark silenced it instantly. "Who's calling?" I asked gently. "No one," he said flatly. "You've gotten a lot of messages." "It's nothing." His answers were short, sharp, like he was holding something tightly inside and didn't want it slipping out. Halfway through breakfast, the woman at the counter approached our table with refilled coffee. She smiled politely at both of us, but when Mark looked down at his food, she leaned slightly toward me, just an inch, and whispered so quietly I almost missed it, "Leave before night." My heart dropped. I stared at her, shocked, but she straightened immediately and walked away like nothing happened. I sat frozen. I didn't look at Mark. I didn't dare. What did she know? What had she seen? Why did she say that? The rest of breakfast was silent. When we walked back to the house, my mind was spinning. If a stranger warned me, and a hidden woman whispered to me, something was very, very wrong. When we reached the house, Mark unlocked the door. We should pack after lunch, he said. We'll head somewhere else. His tone was tight, controlled in a way that felt forced. I nodded, but inside, panic grew heavier. I had to leave. Before night. The moment Mark stepped into the bathroom, I rushed to the closet again. I pressed my ear against the panel. This time, there was no breathing, no whisper, no sound. But when I pressed harder, the wood shifted more easily. And then, for the first time, I saw it. A small piece of fabric. Thin. Gray. Stuck between the panel and the wall. I grabbed it and pulled. It came loose instantly. It wasn't fabric. It was a scrap of clothing. A torn piece of a woman's shirt. Someone had been behind that panel. Someone trapped. Or hiding. Or escaping. Before I could investigate further, I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around. Mark stood in the doorway, staring at me. His eyes dark. His jaw clenched. No mask this time. What, he said slowly, are you doing? Mark stood in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the dim hallway light behind him. His expression was unreadable, calm, almost too calm, like he had walked into an ordinary moment, not the most terrifying one of my life. I stared at him, trying to force my breath to steady, but my chest felt tight, as if invisible hands were gripping my lungs. He blinked at me once, slowly, then stepped inside and closed the door behind him with a quiet click, the sound a little too sharp in the heavy silence. He looked at me the way someone looks at a stranger before deciding whether to speak. Claire, he finally said, his voice smooth, careful. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? For a moment, I couldn't answer. I just kept staring at him, my hand still hovering inches from the closet door. The fear inside me wasn't fading. If anything, it grew stronger now that we were alone again, or at least, I thought we were. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to find my voice. There was someone in here, I whispered. Mark raised an eyebrow. Someone? Who? A woman, I said. I heard her whisper. From the closet. He let out a soft, disbelieving laugh. Not mocking, just dismissive. Claire, you're tired. It's been a long day. Weddings can be overwhelming. Your mind probably played a trick on you. My stomach twisted. I knew what I heard. I wasn't imagining it. And the fear hadn't felt like tiredness or nerves, it felt real. Cold. Direct. Like someone was close enough to breathe near my ear. I didn't imagine it, I said quietly. She said, don't trust him. She was warning me. Mark's expression shifted. Just slightly. A flicker. So fast, I almost missed it. His jaw tightened for half a second before he forced a gentle smile. Sweetheart, you're scared. That old house makes noises. You know that. His tone was soothing, but his eyes were studying me too closely, like he was trying to figure out how much I really knew. He stepped closer, placing his hands on my arms. They felt warm, but the warmth didn't comfort me. It felt more like pressure, subtle, but intentional. Let's sit down, he said. You're shaking. I'm not shaking because I'm tired, I replied. I'm shaking because there was someone in that closet. His eyes flicked toward the door, then back to me. Let me check it then. He reached for the handle before I could tell him not to. He pulled the closet door wide open in one quick motion, as if trying to prove a point. The interior was completely dark. He reached inside, feeling around casually, then pulled the overhead chain to turn the light on. Empty. Just my suitcase, his suit bag, and a few spare blankets on the shelf. He stepped back and spread his hands. See? No one. I didn't move. Something about it didn't feel right. Not the closet, not Mark, not the way he was acting. I had known him for 2 years, but in that moment, he felt like a stranger wearing a familiar face. He walked back toward me. Claire, I love you. I married you today. Why would I ever want to hurt you? His voice softened even more, coated in warmth that felt strangely artificial, like he was repeating words he had practiced. I couldn't shake the feeling in my gut. The warning echoed in my head, don't trust him. The voice had sounded desperate, scared, and absolutely serious. I took a step back. Where did you go? I asked. You were gone for almost an hour. His jaw tightened again. I told you, business call. Urgent. I didn't want to take it in front of you on our wedding night. Didn't want to ruin the mood. But who calls at nearly midnight? I pressed. Claire, he said slowly, his eyes narrowing just a little. Why are you interrogating me? I'm not interrogating you, I whispered. I'm trying to understand why someone would be in this room, in the closet, telling me not to trust my own husband. His expression remained calm, but the light in his eyes darkened. Something flickered there, annoyance, maybe even anger, but he hid it behind a forced exhale. You're stressed, he repeated. Let's get some sleep. He moved toward the bed, acting as though the conversation was finished. As though my fear wasn't valid. As though nothing unusual had happened. He pulled back the blanket and sat down, looking at me expectantly. Come on, he said. It's late. You need to rest. But I didn't move. I couldn't. My instincts were screaming at me, louder than the whisper I'd heard earlier. Something about the way he was trying to end the conversation made my heart pound even harder. Mark, I said slowly, has another woman ever stayed here? Before me? He paused. Just a tiny pause, but noticeable. Then he let out a tired sigh. Claire, this is ridiculous. It's not ridiculous if someone's warning me, I insisted. He stood up again, his patience thinning. Enough. Please. You're creating problems where there are none. But I wasn't creating anything. I wished I was. I wished this was all in my head. But deep down, I knew the difference between imagination and truth, and the fear crawling up my spine wasn't imaginary. I stepped toward the closet again. Not because I wanted to, but because something inside me needed answers. I didn't trust Mark's explanation. I didn't trust his sudden calmness. And I didn't trust the eerie silence inside that dark space. Claire, he said sharply, don't open that again. I froze mid-step. Why not? I asked. Because you're scaring yourself for no reason, he snapped, then quickly softened his tone again. Just leave it alone. Please. But his reaction wasn't normal. It wasn't what a caring husband would say to a frightened wife. It felt more like he was afraid of what I'd find. I swallowed hard and opened the closet door anyway. Light spilled onto the carpet, casting sharp shadows against the hanging clothes. I crouched down, pushing the suitcase aside. That's when I saw it. A small scrap of white fabric near the back corner. Torn. Wrinkled. Hidden under one of Mark's bags. I picked it up. It wasn't mine. It looked like a piece of a woman's blouse, delicate, slightly laced, torn as if someone had been grabbed or yanked. My throat tightened. Mark, I whispered, holding it up. What is this? He didn't answer. He stared at the cloth in my hand, his face unreadable. But something behind his eyes changed again, something darker, colder, and more terrifying than anything I had heard from the closet. Put that down, he said quietly. Too quietly. Not reassuring. Not comforting. A command. I felt my pulse hammering against my ribs. Is someone here? I asked, my voice trembling. Was someone here before we arrived? Did someone? Put it down, Claire, he repeated, stepping toward me, his movement slow but tense. Now. I backed away from him, clutching the torn fabric tighter. Why is this in your bag? His lips pressed into a thin line. You're making a mistake. What mistake? I demanded. He didn't answer. Instead, he took another step, closing the distance between us. His eyes were dark now, no kindness, no warmth, nothing familiar. Just a coldness I had never seen before. In that moment, I realized something with absolute certainty. The warning wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't stress. And it definitely wasn't a random noise in the house. Someone had whispered to protect me. Because the man standing in front of me, the man I married, was not who I thought he was. My hand shook as I backed toward the door, never taking my eyes off him. What did you do, Mark? He didn't blink. Didn't move. He just smiled, a slow, chilling smile that made my blood run cold. Claire, he said softly, you don't want the truth. But he was wrong. I did. And I was finally ready to hear it. For a long, frozen moment, neither of us moved. The torn scrap of fabric trembled in my fingers as I stared at the man I had promised my life to. His eyes, once warm, gentle, dependable, now held something sharp and unfamiliar. Something calculating. It was as if a thin mask had finally slipped, revealing a truth he never intended for me to see. My heart hammered against my ribs so loudly that I could barely hear anything else. The quiet of the room felt alive, heavy, waiting. Tell me what you did, I whispered again, but my voice was barely audible. Mark tilted his head, studying me the way someone studies a puzzle they're deciding whether to break or solve. Claire, he said softly, but there was no softness in him. You really don't want the truth. Not tonight. Why not tonight? I forced out. Because you think I won't run? Because you think I'm trapped here with you? His expression didn't change. If anything, he looked calmer, more controlled. That scared me more than anger would have. Anger is predictable. But calmness in a moment like this, felt deeply dangerous. You're not trapped, he said, taking a slow step toward me. You're confused. Don't come closer, I warned, backing up until my shoulder hit the dresser. He paused, but only for a breath. You heard something that wasn't real. You found something that isn't yours. You're building a story out of shadows. He raised his hand slightly, gesturing toward the scrap. You're holding a piece of fabric. That's all. Whose fabric? I demanded. Who did this belong to? He didn't answer. My fear grew heavier, settling deep in my stomach. I clutched the torn cloth so tightly that it wrinkled further between my fingers. There were faint marks along the edge, tiny stretched threads, the kind left when something is ripped suddenly, violently. Mark sighed and ran his hand through his hair in a slow, rehearsed gesture. Claire, listen to me. This house is old. Hundreds of people have stayed here. That fabric could be from anyone. Maybe it's from a guest months ago. Maybe it fell from a suitcase. Maybe you're... Mark, I said sharply, cutting him off. It was under your bag. Another silence. Not long, but long enough to feel wrong. His eyes held mine, and for the first time since I'd known him, I felt like I was staring at a stranger wearing my husband's face. That doesn't mean anything, he finally said. It means everything, I whispered. I moved around the dresser, keeping as much distance between us as possible. He didn't follow, not yet, but I saw tension in his shoulders, a readiness in his posture. Like he was waiting for me to make the wrong move. Or the right one, depending on what he wanted. My gaze flicked to the door. The hallway outside was dim and quiet. Could I run? Would he try to stop me? Mark noticed the direction of my eyes. Don't, he said gently. Don't do something you'll regret. Like what? I asked, my voice trembling. Leaving. His smile returned slow, unsettling, almost pitying. Running away from your own imagination. But I wasn't imagining any of this. The whisper had been real. The torn fabric was real. His strange behavior, the missing hour, the shifting tone in his voice, all real. And yet, he kept insisting otherwise. Mark, I said, gripping the edge of the dresser for balance, where were you tonight? I told you. No, I said firmly. Where were you really? Something in his expression hardened. The mask slipped another inch. His voice dropped lower, colder. Claire, I'm not going to repeat myself. Then answer me. I snapped, louder than I intended. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. If there's nothing to hide, then tell me the truth. His gaze darkened. The truth, he said in a slow, measured tone, is not something you're ready for. A chill ran through my body. What truth? I whispered. He didn't speak. Instead, he walked past me toward the bed, pulled open the top drawer of the nightstand, and took something out. I stiffened immediately, not because he moved quickly, but because he moved so casually. Like he was doing something routine. What is that? I asked. He didn't answer. He held something small in his hand, a folded envelope. A plain, cream-colored envelope sealed with a faint wax stamp. My stomach tightened. He wasn't supposed to have anything like that. We had packed everything together earlier in the day. He turned it over slowly in his fingers, then glanced at me. This, he said quietly, is what you should be worried about. Not the closet. He held it out toward me. I didn't take it. It's from someone who used to know me, he said. Someone who thought you deserved to know certain things. Someone like the woman in the closet? I asked shakily. His jaw twitched. He didn't confirm or deny it. Open it, he said. I'm not touching that, I whispered. He stepped closer. Claire. Open it. No. We stared at each other for a long moment. His patience thinned. His voice hardened. You want answers? They're in here. My hand shook as I reached out and took the envelope from him. The paper felt old, worn, slightly soft at the edges. There was no name on it. No address. Just the wax seal. I turned it over, and that's when I saw it, the faint imprint on the back of the seal. A small circle, with 3 lines crossing through it. I didn't know what it meant. But Mark did. Because the second he saw me noticing it, his expression changed again, subtly, but unmistakably. His eyes narrowed, and something like irritation flashed behind them. You don't recognize it, he said. Not a question. A statement. Good. What is it? I whispered. Just a symbol. Of what? He didn't answer. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was handwritten. Neat. Delicate. Feminine. My blood turned cold as I read the first line. If you're reading this, it means he brought another woman here. I blinked, my vision blurring. Another woman? My hands tightened around the letter. I kept reading. I don't know your name, but I know him. And if he has chosen you, then he has chosen you for a reason, and it's not love. My breath caught. Mark watched me silently. He didn't move. He didn't interrupt. He didn't even look regretful. He won't tell you the truth until it's too late. He never tells any of us. My throat tightened painfully. Any of us. Us. Plural. Women. I forced myself to continue. If you feel like you're being watched, it's because you are. He learns you, studies you, tests you. He needs to know how far you'll go for him before he decides what to do with you. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the letter. Mark, I whispered, my voice cracking, what is this? He didn't speak. He just stared. I looked down at the next lines. If he brought you to this house, don't stay. Don't sleep. Don't trust him when he says you're imagining things. He said the same to me. Tears stung my eyes. I heard someone here too. I thought it was the house. I thought it was my fear. But it wasn't. It was her. Her. The whisper. My heart stopped. She tried to warn me. I hope she warns you too. My breathing hitched. My vision blurred. The room spun. The final line felt like a knife. By the time you read this, I'm already gone. He doesn't like it when we ask questions. The letter fell from my hand. I stepped back from Mark as if the distance could protect me. He didn't move. He didn't deny it. He just watched me with that same unreadable expression. My voice broke as I whispered, "What did you do to her?" His answer was soft. Too soft. "Claire, you need to calm down." I felt the warning in my gut, the whisper in my memory, the terror in my chest. I backed toward the door. "No," I said. "Stay away from me." But Mark finally moved. Slowly, deliberately, toward me. "Claire," he murmured, that eerie calm back in his voice. "We're not done talking." "Yes," I whispered, tears spilling down my cheeks. "We are." I reached for the door handle, and Mark lunged. I stood in that hallway, the wooden floor cold under my feet, my breath shaking in my chest. Mark was gone. The house had gone silent again. And the woman, her voice, her presence, felt so close it was as if she were standing just behind me. But she wasn't the only one watching. I could feel it now. Eyes. Somewhere in the dark. Someone or something waiting for me to move. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know whether to hide, run, scream, or pray. The only thing I knew was this. If I stayed in this house alone, I might not survive the night. So I forced myself to move. I reached for the railing with trembling fingers and hurried downstairs, each step creaking like it was warning me to turn back. The air felt heavier now, colder, thicker, almost metallic. And somewhere deep inside, I understood. I was no longer running from Mark. I was running from whatever truth he'd tried so hard to bury. The living room looked different as I entered, dim, still, like the house was holding its breath. The fireplace crackled faintly, giving off just enough light to cast long, distorted shadows across the walls. And that's when I noticed it. A door. One I hadn't seen before. It was partly hidden behind a tall cabinet, almost invisible unless the firelight hit it just right. Small, narrow, and painted the same color as the wall, but unmistakably a door. A chill slid across the back of my neck. I stepped closer, pulse pounding in my throat. My hand hovered over the doorknob. Then a whisper brushed against my ear. "Claire, don't." I froze. The voice was so close, closer than before. Softer, trembling, full of fear instead of warning. I turned, expecting to see someone behind me. But the room was empty. Completely empty. My heart hammered so hard it felt like it might break through my ribs. I shut my eyes for a second, trying to breathe, trying to understand what was happening. Was I losing my mind? Hearing things that weren't there? Or was she real, just not alive? When I opened my eyes again, something had changed. The cabinet was no longer hiding the door. It had shifted slightly, but enough that the door was now completely exposed. Like someone wanted me to open it. I swallowed hard. Okay, I whispered to myself. Okay, just open it. My fingers closed around the cold metal knob. It felt older than the rest of the house, rough, worn, almost ancient. When I turned it, the latch clicked loudly, echoing through the quiet. The door creaked open, and a cold breath of air rushed out, brushing my skin like invisible fingers. A staircase descended into complete darkness. I hesitated at the top, gripping the railing as if it were the only thing keeping me alive. The smell rising from below was damp, earthy, and faintly metallic, like old stone and something else, something I couldn't place. Why would he hide this? I whispered. And then I remembered what the ghost, the woman, had said. Don't trust him. I took a step down. Then another. And another. The further I descended, the more the darkness pressed in around me, swallowing the faint light behind me. My foot touched the basement floor, and for a moment, I just stood there, trying to adjust to the dimness. There was only one light, a small bulb hanging from the ceiling, swinging slightly, as if someone had touched it just moments earlier. I reached up and steadied it, and that's when I saw it. A table, covered in files, papers, photographs. I stepped closer, my hands shaking as I picked up the first photo. It was Mark, standing next to a woman. A woman with long dark hair and a scared, exhausted smile. A woman who looked exactly like the ghost's silhouette. My stomach dropped. I shuffled through the documents with trembling fingers. Marriage certificates, police reports, hospital intake forms, all with her name. Emily Harper. My breath caught. Emily, his first wife. But she wasn't supposed to exist. Mark had always told me he'd never been married before. He made it sound like I was his first love, his first commitment, his first real connection. But the truth was right here in my hands. He had been married. He had lied. He had lied about everything. Claire. The whisper returned, this time right beside me. I spun around so fast I almost fell. My heart raced as I searched the shadows. The air grew colder, sharper, like invisible ice spreading across the walls. Please, I whispered into the darkness. If you're here, tell me what happened to you. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the swinging light bulb flickered violently once, twice, and the temperature in the room plummeted. A shadow formed in the corner. Slowly, gently, like smoke curling upward. And then she appeared, her face pale, her eyes hollow with sadness instead of anger. Her hair hung damp around her shoulders, and her lips trembled when she spoke. He hurt me, she whispered. He'll hurt you too. Tears stung my eyes. Emily, what did he do? She shook her head slowly, painfully. He made me disappear. Like I never existed. How? I asked breathlessly. What did he? A loud noise thundered above us. A door slamming. Heavy footsteps. Mark. He was back. Emily's form flickered violently like a candle in a storm. You have to run, she whispered urgently. Now. My pulse exploded in panic. I backed away from the table, grabbing one of the files, one with Emily's photo clipped to the top. I shoved it under my arm and ran up the stairs, nearly tripping as I reached the top. The moment I stepped into the living room, I saw him. Mark stood near the fireplace, his shirt damp with sweat, his eyes wild and unfocused. Claire, he said calmly, too calmly. Where did you go? My fingers clenched around the papers. I found the basement. His face changed instantly. He didn't blink. Didn't breathe. didn't even pretend. Instead, he stepped toward me, slow and controlled, like a predator approaching prey. You weren't supposed to see that, he murmured. I stumbled back, but he moved faster than I expected, closing the space between us in seconds. Mark, I whispered, what did you do to her? Something dark, something chilling flickered in his eyes. That's not important anymore. He reached for me. But before he could touch me, the lights exploded. Every bulb in the house shattered at once, like gunshots echoing through the walls. Glass rained down, and Mark cursed, covering his face. Through the chaos, a cold wind rushed past me. Emily. Her voice filled the room, not a whisper now, but a scream. Run. And I did. I sprinted for the front door, yanking it open so hard it slammed into the wall. I didn't look back. I didn't breathe. I didn't think. I ran barefoot into the freezing night, my heart pounding so violently I thought it might tear itself apart. Behind me, I heard Mark shouting my name. Then the sound of crashing, like furniture being hurled across the room. Then silence. I ran for nearly a mile until I reached the main road, where a passing couple stopped and called 911. When the police arrived at the property, Mark was gone. Completely gone. They searched the house, the woods, the surrounding area, but they never found him. But they did find the basement. And all the files. All the evidence of Emily's disappearance. But no body. To this day, no one knows where Mark went, or if he's even alive. The police believe he left the state, or changed his identity. Maybe he did. But I know the truth. He didn't leave willingly. Emily didn't let him. Sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet and the air feels too still, I swear I hear a whisper drift through my bedroom. Soft. Gentle. Protective. You're safe now. I don't know where she is now. I don't know if she's moved on, or if she's still watching over me. But I do know this. My wedding night didn't give me a husband. It gave me the truth. It gave me a second chance at life. It gave me Emily. And her warning saved me. Because love isn't always what it seems. People aren't always who they pretend to be. And sometimes, the only voice you can trust is the one that whispers to you from the dark.